So a couple months ago, right before Flora Jo was born, right before Mrs. World, we sat down and did a question and answer video with Daniel and I. And I had a photo shoot that night. It was all glammed up and like lots of makeup. But anyways, there were so many good nuggets in that video, so we want you to have it. But obviously, I'm not 9 months pregnant. I just want to preface that because I know I'm going to get the question. Not 9 months pregnant. This is a few months ago, but I hope you enjoy. Here's the video. One of the questions that we get asked a lot is, how we started this business, what it looked like in our beginning days.
Even today, you can't find free-range pork in the grocery stores. There's just not enough of it. That was how we kind of started into it.
Yeah, we could jump into the stove. There's so much drama surrounding our stove. There was one time that the kids put a soccer ball in there in one of the ovens, and
I haven't heard this story.
And we let it it was melted.
And that's the dirty truth.
Hannah and Daniel here from Ballerina Farm. We get, questions from followers, subscribers, and we rarely sit down and answer those questions, but today we're going to sit down and answer some of the most commonly asked questions that you guys have been asking.
Here we go. Don't mind all the flies.
Yeah, we've got tons of flies on the table.
This is a farm after all.
This is a farmhouse after all, so real life.
That's easy.
That's easy. We have 7 children. I'm pregnant with our 8th. And Daniel and I are both one of 9 kids.
Yep. People always ask how many kids we're going to have. And the answer is, only God knows.
Only God knows, yeah. I have 7 brothers. Daniel has 7 sisters.
Yep.
And it was fate.
Mom always told us, whoever has the most kids will get the grand piano. So
we're in the lead.
So we're in the lead right now. We'll see if we can hold it.
One of the questions that we get asked a lot is, how we started this business, what it looked like in our beginning days, our family and the backgrounds that both of us have, how that influenced us. So we're just going to jump in there and talk about that.
Well, you start small, right? We started very small. We started with 4 pigs, and we kind of just went from there. So, you gotta
start small.
You gotta crawl before you can run.
Yeah, and also just know that like any startup business, like it's gonna take some blood, sweat, and tears.
And we kept our day jobs for, Hannah was teaching dance, and I still had my day job. We did that for the first few years until we felt comfortable, like
going full time.
That was a process of transition, and when you transition and make that leap,
yeah,
you should be ready for it. We tell this to people that ask all the time, but, I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. My dad, all his siblings, they all have their own businesses, and I just grew up thinking like that's what you did. You grew up, you got married, and then when you're ready to get serious about life, you buckled down and you started your business. What is your business? Who cares? What is it? I don't know, but I just thought that's what grown-ups did. And as I'm older now, I realize that's not the case. Not everyone is an entrepreneur. Not everyone can be or wants to be. But that's just how I was raised. And then when I met Hannah, she kind of grew up. Her family's also entrepreneurial. All of her brothers have their own businesses. Her family has their own small flower shop. She grew up in a small business. And the only difference was her parents worked together. Mine didn't. And so that's what we kind of combined is, mom and dad working together. But we both knew we wanted to have our own business. We didn't want to work for someone else.
Yeah, in fact, when we were dating, a lot of, my acquaintances or peers that I was dancing with were like, oh, is he going to go work for his dad at the airline? And that never was a thing. I was like, no. And Daniel was like, no, I got to go
do my own.
I got to go pave my own path. And it took us a little bit to find out what your path is. And we knew that going into it. We've watched our brothers and our parents, you don't hit jackpot first time. We spent time working abroad. Daniel was working security. I taught dance at the university. There was things that we were doing and we just somehow fell upon farming.
Yeah.
And it felt...
how to open an LLC and what, how to use an accountant and using all the things that was all things talked around the dinner table because all of our siblings and everyone, that's what they were doing too, is they had their own little small businesses. So it was just a very natural, for us, it was just very natural falling into that world.
Yeah, and also we saw our parents, both of our parents, you know, obviously your dad's business is bigger than my parents' flower shop, but both of them had startup businesses, you know, like they were in the thick of it at the startup of these businesses. And so we knew, like, at the beginning stages, like, it's going to be rough. And it was really, really hard. Like, looking back on those first years of Ballerina Farm, like, they were really hard. And lots of discouraging nights. And we were bringing kids into the world and really, really hard. And, like, we didn't have, you know, date nights. We didn't have, you know, I never got my eyebrows tinted or any of that stuff. You know, it was just like, it was 100% like we were in it. But we knew that was just part of it.
Just part of it. I grew up just, you know, around the dinner table, like, okay, what logo, you know? What color do we want to use on the logo? What's the name of it? Like, here's a list of names. Like, what's everyone's favorite name for the business? I mean, that was just like what we did. That was just part of family culture. And now those are the conversations we're still having today.
Yeah, and it was the same in my family. It was like, okay, you know, this doesn't work well. Like, what are some new business ideas that we can do for the flower shop that, like, will, you know, increase income? And, like, what are the kind of things that we can do to, you know, be more relevant? So, like, albeit they're totally different businesses and different scales, like, we were able to bring those to the table. Yeah, we could jump into the stove.
Yeah, so a question we get a lot about is the stove. You know, does it run on wood?
Did it cost $50,000? You know, all the things. There's so much drama surrounding our stove.
So it is a nice little stove.
It is a nice stove. Yeah, it's 35 years old, but she doesn't look a day over 20. We bought it used off a kind of like a Craigslist listing and had it shipped here, and it came in like a little box in like 1,000,000 pieces.
2 pallets. 2 pallet boxes.
Okay, 2 pallet boxes. Okay,
and then we had to bring in a guy. It took him about 4 days to put her together.
Yeah, because it was very complicated.
Yeah, it is heavy. We had to build like a little pedestal because the stove is 100% cast iron. So I think it weighs about 1,000 pounds.
And it's definitely my pride and joy. It's like the thing that brings me so much joy in our home. Yeah, well, I really wanted to make, like, our house is a small farmhouse, but there were certain things in the house that I really wanted to make special so that we could really take pride in it and enjoy it. Like, we don't have cabinets. We have this wood dining room table, but it was really the only piece of furniture that we have in the kitchen, and totally worth it.
It is.
I mean, that stove brings me so much joy. First, I wanted a wood cook stove because I just thought they were so charming and beautiful, and there's a lot of, you know, new ones being made that are really incredible. But Daniel, which I agree now, said, like, that is probably not realistic with all the kids and all the cooking you do. Like, a wood stove is gonna be a lot. And so I found this browsing through the internet, and I was like, wow, it's not a cook stove, but it's still really beautiful and has a lot of the same charm and functionality that a cook stove does. And so once I laid eyes on it, I was like, I have to have it. And it was green, which my mom and dad and a lot of people were like, it's green, like, you're gonna get sick of the green. But I haven't gotten sick of the green.
No, we haven't. So yeah, as far as the price goes, it was $6,000. But the problem was it was in South Carolina.
South Carolina.
So it was another couple thousand to freight it out here. So,
but at this point, there was no turning back. I mean, it was
no turning back. So we thought we were done. You know, we had the guy that was installing our heating here in the house. We said, great news, like,
we got a stove.
We got a stove. Can you install it? And he's like, sure. You know, I install stoves all the time. Like,
fine.
So the freight truck showed up with 2 pallets. You know, we had to get the tractor to unload it. You know, and the tractor's like straining. And I'm thinking, like, what is in these pallets? And it's because the stove is made out of solid cast iron.
Solid cast iron.
So we finally got these things into the house, and the guy came to install it, and he said, well, what is this? Like,
I showed him the picture.
Looks like a locomotive. Like, this isn't an oven. And so Hannah started showing him pictures, and so he called, like, the company hotline, and they chewed him out. And they said,
don't you dare touch that.
Don't you dare touch that
If you
stove.
are not a certified AGA installer, you do not touch the
Yeah,
stove.
back away from the stove.
Immediately.
Immediately leave the premises. So they gave us the number of the guy.
There's only one in the Western United States.
Yeah, we had to, bring him in, and
No, luckily he lives in Utah. He does.
and he knows every AGA stove in the state.
There's 12 AGAs in Utah.
Yep. And so we brought him in, and that was another $4,000 just to have it installed.
It was 4,000 to install?
Yeah, sure was. So
8,
12,000,
9, 10, 11, okay.
and we had to build a little pedestal up. So
And
at
it
that
took
point,
like 2 weeks to install.
that point, that one hurt a little bit, but
But it was already here where there was no going back.
there's no going back, so we had to go forward, and that's the dirty truth.
It's always running. It's always on propane. People ask if our propane bill is a lot.
Well, I think in the summer it's definitely more than the average house. In the winter, it actually helps heat the house, so
Yeah.
you notice it less. But in the summer, it is running, and when the house doesn't need to be heated.
But I think we calculated it was like a 20% increase in our propane bill or something like that. It wasn't outrageous. But for the amount of amount we use it, and
What I like about it is that it's always ready to go.
worth it.
It's always a temperature. You get home, the kids want to throw a quesadilla.
We don't have a
on.
microwave. We've never had a microwave in this home because the AGA is always on, so you can just throw things in there.
Yep, that's right.
It has a pipe out the top, so you can't smell anything that's in the oven. So if
Gets
something's
vented out.
yeah, it gets all vented out outside. So if something's burning, you can't smell it in the house. And so there was one time that the kids put a soccer ball in there in one of the ovens, and
I haven't heard this story.
we let it it was melted. And then also, the kids will make quesadillas and cheese. They'll put them in the oven, and then they'll go out and play and forget about them. And then, 4 hours later,
Don't smell anything burning.
you don't smell anything burning.
No smoke.
You open the oven, and it's just like these pieces of
Yeah.
charcoal. So
We burnt some cinnamon rolls this morning.
we burnt cinnamon rolls this morning. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
So here are these cinnamon rolls from this morning. Burnt to perfection. I really wanted them.
And as far as the color goes, it's called British Racing Car Green is the name of the
Yeah,
color.
racing car green, yeah.
Well, I think one of the best things about a social media business in our case is that we get to work together. Growing up, my parents didn't work together. Mom was home with us kids. Dad got on the train and went to work in New York City. For us, it's been so nice to be able to work together. We obviously have a lot of kids, so we have a lot of responsibilities. And I take care of more of the ranch side of things. Hannah takes care of more of the marketing, a lot of the products that we work on, product development. And so we have defined roles in some things, but we also share so many roles.
Yeah.
And especially with parenting. I mean, we're very 50-50. Hannah does more. I do as much as I can.
Well, especially because the kids are homeschooled, and both of us are at home every day, and so
Yeah.
we're able to share a lot of that,
Yeah. So we're
which
home.
is really helpful.
We're together the vast majority of the day, which I love.
Yeah, I think that's the best part about a social media business, I guess, or an e-commerce business, is that you do get to work with each other, and that's the best part of
The other thing I like is
journey.
when we travel, it can be for fun, but it's often for business too. So we like to be able to document our travels. We often will go to farms. We might hit a beach too, but there's always farms even near beaches, and so that's been fun. We're working when we're playing. We're playing when we're working. I've really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think being a content creator is, because we run a business, but we're also content creators, right? There's kind of two aspects to what we do. And I think being a content creator can be very challenging at times, but also can be very freeing. Like you said, you can create content anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah. And for me, my main responsibility, we're raising the animals, we're taking care of the ranch. I really feel strongly that I have to, support Hannah, and we have a lot of kids. I can't expect her to take care of the kids all day and also produce the content that she wants to produce as an artist. And so I just have always felt that if I take care of her needs and what she needs, that she can produce her content, and honestly, the business side takes care of itself. And so that's been so important, is just making time to create the content, because, you know, that's why people have come in the first place to Ballerina. You're always saying, like, if they want to start a social media account, it has to be something that's so natural for them.
Yeah.
That they want to share it, that it's, you know, for us, it's second nature. Like, you go to start folding bread, or you go to start feeding animals, and the first thing you think is, like, I want to document this. It's just like habit. It's second nature. Like, you can't help it. And so for someone wanting to do that, they really have to, like, find something that they want to share.
Yeah, it's not hard. That's my advice. And when we were first starting, you know, there was so much content that I was sharing and creating that I would always think, like, what is this going to do for me long term? You know, like, I'm showing the process of me learning how to do sourdough because it was interesting to me and it was easy to me. It was what I was doing. But little did we know that that would grow into something, you know, a huge part of our business is like me shipping my sourdough starter all over the world and creating a sourdough kit. So it has to be something that you are really passionate about, you love doing, it comes easy. You don't have to set up these sets or, you know, these networks that you're not familiar with. Like, do something that you're already doing and that you're good at and enjoy sharing.
Yeah, I remember the time Hannah came home and she said, you know, we were just shipping meat at that point. We were shipping beef and pork, and that was basically it. And she said, I really enjoy sourdough. Like, I like making it. I like talking about it. I like sharing my sourdough start with people. Like, I want to do something with this. And in my mind, I thought, honey, like, focus, you know. We got pork, we got beef. Like, what can we do with this? Like, that's what we do. Sourdough, that's not our thing, you know, we're ranchers. And she felt so passionate. No, this is important. Like, for me, I feel passionate. I feel I want to do that. And so she ran with it, and it really has been such a good part of our business, and something that inspires her, something that fills her cup. And we've been able to share that and sell products of that process all over the world. So, I mean, that was an eye-opener to me. And diversification for our farm, I love it.
Yeah.
It's so nice that most farmers in the world are growing corn, or they're growing wheat, or they're growing cows, or they're growing pigs or chickens, or whatever it is. They're growing one thing. And if that market goes down, or if that herd gets sick, or if that crop has a disease, I mean, that's really hard to be that many eggs in one basket. And so the way that Hannah's been able to help us diversify our product line between the meat and now the baked goods and sourdough and apparel and furniture and all these things, I mean, it just keeps you nimble. It keeps you, I think, long-term safe, easier to pivot. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, starting a business, usually, like Dad used to always say, you know, you're finding a pain point and you're helping solve that pain point. You know, someone's uncomfortable, someone needs something, and like you're providing a good or a service to those people. And we felt that's what we wanted to do when we started with pigs. We just felt like there wasn't a lot of great free-range pork available on the market, and so we saw a pain point there. And even today, you can't find free-range pork in the grocery stores. There's just not enough of it. So much of the pigs are raised indoors. So, you know, that was how we kind of started into it.
Yeah, and then, as our social media presence grew, like, mine was like, okay, how do I help maybe someone who wants to be a little more self-reliant? Like, what are things that they can do in their home to make that happen? You know, whether that's sourdough bread or a milk cow or chickens or whatever. Yeah, I think social media has opened so many doors for us. Honestly, it's the reason why we can support our family on a small farm, small operation. I think that's what's so neat about this generation. If you are a young farmer or someone who wants to get into farming, like, there's so many ways you can sell your products direct to consumer and be able to make a living because of social media. Hi, Lois.
Absolutely. I mean, the world is your market. You're not confined to one little store in one town.
Yeah, oftentimes farms are in more rural areas, and you're not able to.
Not a lot of foot traffic.
Yeah, not a lot of foot traffic.
And so the fact that you can live hundreds of miles from an airport and you can sell and that your product can get to someone across the country the very next day because they're following you on social media, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and I think people, we were once living in New York City, and it was always something that I loved to do is like try to find, a farmer that I knew how they were raising the food. Like that was something that I wanted to do. And so hopefully we're providing a product that if you live in an area where there's not the ability to buy right from the farm or grow your own food, you can know a farmer and buy from them.
Yep. Know your farmer, know your food.
Okay, do's and don'ts of social media and sharing your lives on social media.
This is tricky. We're still figuring this out.
We're still figuring it out.
But we have learned a thing or two.
I feel like it was different. And then I remember I had Mabel whenever I had her, year and some ago. And that's the week that I hit 1 million followers. And that one kind of like was a big number to me. I was like, wow, okay, 1 million people are following me now. Like, this is a lot.
Hannah's, siblings or parents would be like, wow, you hit this number. And I think the 1 million was big. And then after that, we kind of stopped worrying about it. If you're working hard and putting out good content, I mean, that stuff just comes. It's not something you have to stress about. And
yeah. And also, we're both pretty prayerful. Like, we do pray a lot. Like, God, like, help us know, like, what we're supposed to share. Help us know, like, our boundaries on that with, like, our kids and our business and all the things. And I feel like it's been really good so far.
Yeah. For us, it was always about just supporting our family, being able to make our loan payments. We wanted to have the kids have a good experience on the farm. You have a lot of farm kids that, they didn't have a good experience being raised on the farm. They felt like they didn't get to do things. They felt like they were poor. They felt like they missed out. And as soon as they got the chance, they went to the city and never looked back.
Or they sold the farm as soon as, mom and dad passed away, which we don't want either of those to happen.
We didn't want that. So we really wanted the kids to love growing up on the farm and feel like, wow, this could work. Like, you don't have to sacrifice everything to live on a farm. And so we work hard so that, we can go on a vacation. We can have good equipment that starts and works properly and all the things. And so the number of followers never really, as long as we could provide for our family, like that's what that's what meant the most to us.
Yeah. Yep.
Bringing all these little kids in the world, you got to take care of them. And people are always asking to, like, how do you feel comfortable bringing children into this world? It's such a difficult world. And, I've just never felt like we should fear. Kids have such an opportunity to change, their communities. And a community like ours, not a lot of the younger generation can stay here. There's not a lot of, available houses. And so a lot of them end up leaving. And so I would say, the valley that we live is getting older. And our kids they have a place here in this valley. They're contributing. They're part of a town that needs youth and needs to see young faces and needs to see little kids growing up. So and I can see them really being an asset to this valley. So no, I don't feel any reason why this world isn't a place we can bring children into. Now, obviously, every community is different, but children being raised by parents that love them, I don't think that's ever a bad idea.
I like that. Yeah, honestly, Daniel and I try to keep our life really simple. We don't try to collaborate with other influential people necessarily. We like being on the farm. We like just our life, and yes, we're sharing it, and our audience is growing. But I don't think we try to think about it a lot, and I also don't think the kids think about it a lot either. Like, they're just living their life, and we're just living our life, and yeah, we are including people, but it's not something that we really...
I don't think they know anything different.
That's true.
I mean, our oldest was only 11, and we've been doing this 6 years. They grew up with Instagram, and they grew up with social media, and seeing the videos that mom and dad are producing.
Yeah, and I think the kids too, like, naturally, the kids that are interested in it and enjoy it, you know, Fran, like, she loves being with me when I'm filming food, but like the boys, like, they could care less. Like, they're not really like into the whole, you know, creator aspect of it. And so they're usually off doing their thing. And yeah, like when we're at family roping or whatever, like, you see them, but they're not super,
They're doing their own thing.
yeah, they're doing their own thing. And I think as they get older, it'll be more and more like that. You know, they're less my mom and dad, and they're doing their own thing. And if they're naturally drawn to it, then, like, yes, come help us and create with us, and like, it would be fun. But if they're not, then like, that's okay too. Like, that's great.
That's how I was. Then one day, like, Hannah called me over and said, "Hey, you." I said, "What?" And she goes, "About time you start your own Instagram." And I said, "Well, what for?" And she goes, "Well."
No, that's not true. You would always be taking videos, and you'd send them, airdrop them to me at night.
Yeah,
and
I would
be like,
take.
Daniel, these are really beautiful videos from such a different perspective. Like, don't give them to me. Like, just start your own platform.
I would come home. I'd take all this great footage because I was out on the farm, you know.
And he has just such a neat, you know, perspective that's so different than mine.
And then I'd airdrop them to Hannah and say, "Here's some good stuff," because at the end of the day, we're content producers, and so we did that for a while, and then Hannah started having so much content, she wasn't using my videos, and I felt like, well, this is good stuff.
I know. He'd be like, "You didn't post me explaining about my cow fencing operation." And I was like, "Just post it. You post that." Like, I'm trying to cook sourdough bread here.
Yeah, and she was. So
So that's when hog fathering was born.
We also thought it was a good contingency plan. You know, if someone ever hacks your account or anything, you got a backup account.
Yeah.
Some redundancy, if you will.
Yeah, and, you know, something interesting that hog fathering has, you know, this little tricky part that we've been going through the last couple months is, like, I am expecting, we just announced on social media.
Baby number 8.
Baby number 8. But, like, I didn't really feel the, you know, urge to announce on social media early on. And so I kind of, you know, kept it just between us. But Daniel, I'd noticed, like, I'd watch his stories at night, and he would have these videos of me, like, I looked very pregnant. And I was like, honey, we either have to announce that I'm pregnant, or you can't post these videos. Like, people are going to start thinking I have eaten too much sourdough bread.
So that's when I would say, like, let's announce. Like, I can't wait.
So I'd have to go on after he posted and, you know, delete the ones that...
Like, father 8th time? Like, yes, please. So I don't see what the big deal was. But Hannah strung this thing out. We didn't announce until we were 6 months along, you know.
Yeah. There's some, you know, compromises we have to make.
Imagine the shock when her mother found out, you know, that she was 6 months along and hadn't told her.
Yeah, it's true. I guess just enjoying the kind of the chaos of it all, you know. Sometimes I think people imagine once you've hit a certain point, or in your business or in your followers or whatever, that your life will look a certain way, but really our life is still, like, pretty chaotic, and I'm still unorganized, and, you know, there's a lot going on, but I think there's just beauty in that, and we enjoy that process, and, you know, bringing our kids along for all the ride is really fun.
One time someone made a comment on Instagram. They said, well, like, now you've made it, you know, you'll never be poor, you'll never go hungry because now you've made it. And like, I think we're more motivated now than we ever have been. There's been no accomplishment that we've had that's ever demotivated us. And so, no, you don't stop, you live, you know, by the sweat of thy brow thou shalt eat thy bread all the days of thy life. that's part of the joy of life is building and growing and
I'm about
and
ready to
moving
retire, so we're opposite.
And Hannah's
I'm just kidding. I'm not.
Hannah likes to change more than me even so.
No, I think we're a good balance because Daniel, you know, he's a really hard worker. He like hones things in, but I'm like the dreamer, you know.
Hannah dreams.
I'm not my creative side coming out. I really love to.
She dreams of the barns, I build them.
Yeah, you know, I'm like, oh, let's start a dairy farm, and Daniel's like, okay, like we can do that. Like, you know.
Give me 4 years.
Give me 4 years, you know. So, I think we're a good balance with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll have more talks.
Yeah, more question and answers as the questions come up.
And keep following along.
Yeah.
Subscribe.